things are going. But when we're getting on with this problem of Les Miserables, well, whenever I hear that, of course, this is touching home base because I would like you to guess. I will award the brass figurine with bronze oak leaf palm how I got the name of Jean. All of you people who think it's spelled Gene, including you, Don. I've been here on this schedule for 115 years, and the IBM machine still spells it Gene on the log. It's Jean, and I would like you to guess how I got that name. Do you have to guess? No, nothing to do with girls. No, sir. In Chicago, the name Jen had nothing to do with girls. It is only in the effete East, the glandless East, where that would be thought of. It was never thought of, not once, in the Midwest. I'll tell you how it came about. No, you can have all kinds of names. One thing I will say about the Midwest and the South too, for that matter, they are much more tolerant as far as names are concerned. You can call yourself Radish. Oh yeah. I knew guys named Cletus, all kinds of names, and if you had a name like that, you'd have to just bury it out in the backyard here in New York if you had a name like that. Really, that's the truth. I knew a guy's name was just LG, that's all. His name was LG. His parents liked the name LG, because many years ago they'd had a very distinguished insurance man named LG Adams, and they didn't know that his name was Leander Godfrey Adams, and so it just became LG Adams, and they named their kid LG, and to this day his name is LG Adams. Now they don't think like that on the Grand Concourse. It's always the same. It's always the same old name. Believe me, if I've met one Herb, I've met 1,000 here from the Grand Concourse. It's a funny thing, and yet somehow the name Gene seems to you to be somehow vaguely subversive. It's a name that obviously, your parents wanted a girl. Can you imagine my old man wanting a girl? You don't know my old man then if you say that's ridiculous. A girl. My old man had a terrible desire to beget a Chicago White Sox third baseman. Now, even in those days, they did not think in terms of femininity playing third base for the White Sox. It may come to that on the Mets, but this was the White Sox, Dad, where you played hard baseball, you smoked, drank, swore, and you batted 174. It's a very different world. Well, now, how did I get this name? I will ask you. Well, I'll tell you how I'll tell you. It was really, I was named after my old man. His name was Gene, too. But how did he get his name? That's the crux of it all. It seems that his sister, who was older than he was deep in this tremendous, this really tremendous romantic period that 15, 16-year-old chicks go through. Now, the romantic period, of course, has changed a little bit now, that 16-year-old chicks apparently in those days were romantic about other people. Today, the 16-year-old chick will be romantic usually about herself. She will fall tremendously in love with herself and will romanticize herself beyond all recognition. Well, it was different then, and old Aunt Glenn got very romantic, and she was reading a book called Les Miserables, which was a very romantic book, and there was a guy named Jean Valjean in there, which is the way she would pronounce it on the south side of Chicago. There was Jean Valjean. So it seems that at about that time in history, my grandmother was about to give birth to the greatest left-handed pool and snooker player to ever come out of 55th and Union. She didn't know that, of course, at that time, that she was about to give birth to greatness. And so all that they knew was that they were about to have this thing. Well, then finally this thing was born. And they stood around and they looked at each other and they thought about it. And my aunt, being a very aggressive young girl, said that we should name him Gene. Of course, she couldn't go all the way. Jean Valjean. That would have been, I admit, that would have been tough on the south side, a name like that. So she says, let's go with Gene. So my grandmother says, Gene? And my aunt says, Gene, yes. As I say, she was a very aggressive girl there. So she says, Gene. So there's a lot of hollering back and forth. And finally they decided to call him Gene. Well, my grandmother decided to, fine. So she writes down Gene, which was, and this is the truth, on the birth certificate, which was absolutely against everything that my aunt, because she was really romantic, Jean Valjean, the whole business, the clash of sabers and dark Parisian alleys and all that, Les Miserables. Well, So there was a lot of confusion, and my aunt took the birth certificate right back to the hospital and said, "You changed this. You misspelled it." Well, they never heard of it being spelled Jean like that on the south side. I'm telling you the actual story. So so they called up my grandmother. They said, "There's this girl down here who says we misspelled it." And of course they had the notary public and all that jazz. So my grandmother says, "Yes, that's the way it is to be spelled. It's to be Jean." Little realizing, of course, she had just given birth to one of the great pool players of that period, and also probably one of the greatest White Sox fans ever created, and a lot of other things. So he became known as Gene in the neighborhood. Well, now, at that time, no one knew. The idea of it being a girl never entered anybody's mind. It really didn't. And they just said it was misspelled. In fact, it's rarely been the Jean idea with being a girl's name has rarely been said to me. What is always said is that I don't know how to spell my name. That's what's always said.